All right, welcome everyone to the GUSD Google Classroom Parent Webinar. Remember, this is geared toward middle school families, but it applies to all grades. My name is Doug Lang. I'm the coordinator of instructional technology for the Glendale Unified School District. I also work for our assessment department. My primary role is to train teachers how to use technology for their teaching. I also manage a lot of the apps that we have in the district, like Clever and many other things that are attached to Clever. The whole presentation, I'm going to try to do most of it from this Chromebook as far as the screen sharing is going, just to show you that pretty much everything I do, your students can do if they have a Chromebook. They can also do it on a regular computer. So let me show you some things on our website really quick. Then I'm going to grab the Chromebook over here. We're going to talk about signing into Zoom. Okay, our website really quick. I know you hear about it. Every communication says go to GUSD.net/distance learning. But guess what? There's a lot of things there. So I just want to show it while I have everyone a captive audience. So you just go to resources and click on distance learning. Now that might be linked in other places. It's very common that we'll cross-post things, so it's easy to find. But remember, resources is chock full of all kinds of things that you can access. So the top option right now is distance learning. That has everything to do with the fact that students aren't in schools right now. So there's all these big links: return to school plan, instructional schedules, childcare, healthy meals, health and wellness. We even have a whole bunch of videos that we put on here that are helpful, like this one, how to sign into a Chromebook with Google or Clever. But I want to just show you the technology page and where you can get help. By the way, if you need general support for distance learning, there's all the phone numbers here where you can get help, and even in all of the different languages that we translate into. And if you click on technology, there's some helpful info here. I'm just going to do a quick zoom on this so you can see that better. Right at the top, if you did not receive this with the Chromebook, if you checked out a Chromebook, there's the quick start guide for Chromebook. It's just a document, it's PDF that has a lot of great images for how to know what a student's login is, the typical format. This is for anyone in 8th grade and below. High schoolers set their own Google passwords for security, but up until then, they all follow this format. So there's great information on that. That was just a link right on our website. There's also the T-Mobile hotspot guide if you were in need of one of those and you checked one of those out, and we have all the translations. There's a graphic that shows when you sign in with Google to sign in with the different account, the tiny blue text. It's my dream that we could change that to be a little more clear, but that's a Google thing. There's also the Clever badge option. If you happen to have a student in 3rd grade or below, they have that option. And that's about it. But the one thing is there's the tech support line for parents, for families. That line, if you call, will go to a voicemail where you leave your message, and we have a whole team here of young adults, college students helping us return those phone calls.
Hey, Mr. Lang, what is the wait time on that? I have a parent who says that she's left several messages and hasn't gotten a call back. How long do you expect it to be? I'm sure it's a little more crazy now, but it'll probably get.
We're getting about 200 calls a day. Our team of college student volunteers went through 300 yesterday, so they're gaining traction and making up for a lot of lost time. But the most common question we've had, 80% of the questions were, how do I get a Chromebook? So the quick answer on that, and now this is going to be probably less common with this group, but if you do need one, you can go to the district office between 8:30 and 4:30, and there's a station set up in our front lobby for you to check out a Chromebook. You don't have to have an appointment. You just come on down. There might be a little bit of a line. We have a lot of staff there checking out Chromebooks. But as long as you have a student in GUSD, they will get that Chromebook checked out to them, so we know who has the Chromebook. So whenever it is the appropriate time, those will be turned in in some way, shape, or form. So we're moving, we're creating while we're moving, and there'll be some instructions for how to do that when the time comes. So that's the #1 question we get right now. If you needed a Chromebook, come on down to 223 North Jackson and grab one. I'm going to stop my screen share because Dr. Brook has an excellent slide presentation to help with your Zoom login situation. So let me stop my share and we'll move over to his screen.
All right, so the screen share that I have is specific to, I made it for Roosevelt because obviously that's where I work, but it works for everyone the same. So if you signed in yesterday or maybe even this morning and you got this message that says that the meeting is for internal only, please sign in with your company account to join. That is okay. That means that your teachers put in some specific security features. So what you want to do first, you're going to click leave here. And then you're going to click the option to sign in with Google. So right here, sign in with Google. After you do that, you're going to have your child log in with their GUSD account. And that could either be it might already be here for them too. So in my sample student here, you see I'd already logged in. So it already had my option there. So you would just click on it and then enter your password. Or you might have to enter their @stu.gusd.net account. Once you do that, it'll take you to another page. I'll show you what that will look like in just a second. So the other option is that you can log in through Clever, which is clever.gusd.net. And you're going to do the same thing. Log in with Google, and you'll use your GUSD account to be able to do that. You're going to scroll down to Communications and then click on Zoom for Students. And once you do that, it's going to bring you to this page. So you're still not going to get in, and this is where most of our families are having trouble. Most of the phone calls that we have is about the Clever or the GUSD account. So all you need to do once they get to this page is minimize this screen and go back to Google Classroom and click on the teacher's link. And once you're able to do that, you'll get your child in right away. So sorry for the extra little features, but what we're really trying to do is make sure that no strangers enter our Zooms, because we definitely don't want anyone who doesn't belong doing anything in those specific rooms for sure.
Yeah, thank you. Keep that screen there for just a sec. I want to talk about this. One of the most common things, and before I say that, we have also added the Clever authentication option. We added yesterday after there was some confusion with the Google, the district Google account method. We found the language to be a little confusing because it says company and this is a district. We've reached out to Zoom to see if they can customize that message for us, so it makes more sense to a student. But if the Clever option seems to work good, so you might see that. If they get to the Clever login page and it asks them to enter the name of the school, it just needs to associate them with the Glendale Unified Clever page. They just start typing the name of the school. But there's a lot of Wilson middle schools. There's probably a lot of Roosevelts. These are common names for middle schools, except for Rosemont, which would be more unique, but could be. So they just need to make sure it says Glendale Unified School District when they select the school name. And I'm going to try to code it differently so it goes straight to the Glendale one. But this screen that Dr. Bruick is showing, a lot of students, they would click right here. They're like, I'm ready to go. I'm going to start with or without the video. But notice it says start a meeting at the top. They end up in their own Zoom meeting all by themselves. That's not good. They actually have to click on join a meeting, but I would advise, like Dr. Bruick, just close it and go back to the link. Then
Minimize, not close.
Minimize, because the link will tell that Zoom app, here's where the student is going. So it'll be a little more fail-safe. And like he said, we definitely apologize for the extra steps, but it is so important for teachers to know that the students coming in are the students that are supposed to be coming in. So we're doing everything we can to make that as smooth as possible. And some of those things, we learn how well they work when we go to scale and do it with thousands of kids. And so we're trying to find the best option. If your child is not on a Chromebook by chance, they're on a family computer or a home computer, you can run into some difficulties where anything that says sign in with Google, if there's another Google account that's logged into. So a lot of times, if it's the parent's computer, the parent is signed into Google Chrome, the browser. Clever might mistake that Google account as being the one trying to log in, and it'll say, uh-oh, you're not authorized. So just keep in mind, if you can log out all Google accounts on a home computer, that will improve your child's experience or your student's experience. Clever is just a place where they go to the portal, and all of the apps they should need are linked to the portal. So if they scroll down, there might be apps that they might have a teacher page. For instance, here's my son's teacher's page. They might have things that the school has added that are school-specific apps. And then they'll have items that the district has added, which starts here where it says district curriculum apps. One of those apps is Google Classroom. So there's two ways that a student can get to Google Classroom from the Chromebook. The fail-safe method is to click on this Google Classroom app at the bottom, on that bottom toolbar or taskbar of the Chromebook. But there's also a link in Clever that they can click on, and that's if they just have to keep scrolling. The amount of apps your student will see depends on what class they're in, what school they go to. So they can just click on that app, and that should take them right into Google Classroom. And like I said, if it doesn't, for any reason, well, they do have to select their Google account. We added that app at the bottom to make it easier for them to get to Google Classroom. Okay, the first place we're going to talk about is how they join the Google Classroom. I'm going to show you two ways that a student might join a Google Classroom, the ways they can join. And it depends on how the individual teacher has set up the Google Classroom. You will notice on this list of Google Classrooms on my son's account that one of them says join. This means that the teacher was able to add all of the students ahead of time. Ideally, and I believe we checked this morning, fairly consistently at our middle schools, they're going to join with this option. They just click the blue box that says join. There's another option that teachers might use that I want you to be ready for in case it comes up, just so you have an awareness. Teachers can have students join with a class code. The way they enter that is they go to this plus sign on the top right that's kind of near their profile image, and they enter the code here. For this demonstration, I'm going to be using this sample class that I created, and I have some assignments in here that I'm going to use to demonstrate. So let's talk. This is when the student first gets into Google Classroom. This is what they see. They land on the stream. So that's where all the teacher will post announcements and assignments. Sometimes the assignments will only be in the classwork. Sometimes they'll be on the stream, but it's mainly for announcements or things coming up. So if I scroll down, you will notice what's here. This teacher has posted the Zoom link for the day. This is one way that a teacher might post a Zoom link. This way, the student has to log in. They might ask them to log into Clever first. That's why I mentioned it. Or Google, and they'll click on this, and it should open. We have added Clever as an authentication method today, so it can hopefully smooth some wrinkles out with the Google authentication method, which was successful for most, but not all. So they would just click this link to go to their Zoom. There's many ways a teacher can share a Zoom link. All middle schoolers have email. I believe it's activated as of now. The teacher has the option to email the link to the students. They will probably also be posting it on the Google Classroom. It might be posted as an assignment or on the stream. The student only needs, if they're on a Chromebook, just to click on that link, and it should open the Zoom app and take them there. There are a couple options that teachers might have them authenticate with. One is through Clever, one is through their student Google account. So the next tab is Classwork. So Stream is where announcements are, any posts, anything like that. And then you have the Classwork tab. This is where the student finds all of the assignments that the teacher has assigned. I'm going to go through the basics of a few different types of assignments and how a student will turn them in. Okay, let's start with this science writing assignment. So in order to check the assignment, the student can click on that and just get the brief summary. It says write an essay on the circulatory system. Okay, that sounds like a science. By the way, these are all just examples that I built just to show the concept. Then the student, it says it's assigned. It'll say that it's missing if it is past the due date. They just click View Assignment. So they can see what is being asked of them here. So they know it's worth 100 points. They can see their teacher name here. In this case, it's my name because I've created this class for an example. This says write an essay on the circulatory system. So in some cases, I would hope the teacher has already created a document for them to write their essay. But if that doesn't happen, I've made it so I can show you how they would create that. So if there's no document for them to complete there or to click on, they can just create it themselves in their Google Drive. The way they do that is they just hit Add or Create, and they get to pick one of these items. So they can add something that is already created in their Google Drive. So that can be a Google Doc, a Google Slides, a Google Sheet, Google Draw, Google everything. They can just add it if it's already been created. If they want to create it now, they can just click on one of the options, Docs, Slides, Sheets, or Drawings. I'm going to click on Docs for this example. So I want to create that document where I'm going to write my science essay on the circulatory system. All right, that will open in a new tab. And notice the name, it already gives it the title. It has the student's first and last name, and then it has the name of the assignment. So this one says Owen Lang, Science Writing. This is where they would compose the essay. For this example, I'm just going to put some text on here. Once they're done,
Mr. Lake, it's funny that you bring that up. We get a lot of those essays put in. Parents who pay attention to whether or not the kids have turned in their work, they'll see that this is done, and then when you open it, this is exactly what it looks like. So parents may need to open the assignments to double check every so often and make sure the kids are actually doing the work. Miss D, do you see the same thing?
Yes, of course. Yes, or students uploading an empty doc.
Okay, yeah, and exactly. I was going to mention that. There's some of the things that you can look for is I'm going to show you how to turn this in, and it's perfectly, I can turn this in the way I did it, or even if it was blank. There's two ways to turn it in. They don't want to click the share button. It seems the intuitive option sometimes is to share. It's blue, it draws their attention, they'll share it with the teacher. That's great, but that did not turn it in to Google Classroom. They want to click the actual button that's gray that says turn in. And you might think, well, that makes sense. It says turn in. But we have a lot of times where students think they've submitted it because they've shared it, but it hasn't actually been turned in. All of a sudden, it's coming up as a missed assignment. So we want to avoid that as much as possible. But mistakes do happen. Keep that in mind. It tells them, it goes back to Google Classroom. It actually opens another Google Classroom tab instead of going back. And they can review what they're turning in, and they just click on Turn In. This info will be helpful for you as guardians, parents or guardians, as you're assisting your students at home with some of the work they're doing in Google Classroom. That's the purpose of this. So that's the first example. That's a simple writing assignment That one has been turned in. Now the teacher can go and access that and give it a grade. Let's look at another type of assignment. Okay.
Doug,
So
if I can pause you right here just on some
Yes.
things in the Q&A. Some questions about checking assignments. If you could reiterate that process. I think a lot of parents, because I'm a parent too, are used to looking at a piece of paper before a student takes it to school to turn into a teacher. Can you maybe address, after a student finishes that process that you just showed us, the turn in, if that document is still accessible for a parent to look at it, maybe give feedback or help a student through, and then resubmit?
yeah, okay, excellent. That's a great question. So that's a Google Doc that is owned by the student, and it is automatically shared with the teacher because it's all in Google Classroom. At any time, the student can unsubmit that assignment. So they can click unsubmit, and now it goes back. Now it's back open. They can go back at any time now and edit that assignment. So see how it says your access has expired? That's because I turned it in. So turning it in means you've given now the editing rights over to the teacher because you're turning it in. There's not an opportunity. What you want to turn it in, let me back up. The student needs to turn it in by the due date because that, just like in school, the way we usually do it, they have to turn that paper in. Maybe on Friday it's due, they bring it to school and turn it in on Friday or before Friday. They can't take it back and keep writing on it over the weekend. So they lose their editing rights unless they unsubmit. Unsubmitting, though, can cause it to be turned in late. And teachers will have different ways that they handle that situation. So I can go back in and I can add more. And then I can submit it again. Now I can go back here and I could just turn it in. I don't have to turn it in from the assignment. I just want to make sure I'm not hitting the share button because it's not going to actually turn it in. So I'll turn it in again. And like I said, it's a live document. Once I do this, I will lose my editing privileges and it's turned in. So that's a good question. So let's go on. Thank you so much.
Actually, Doug, let's clarify a couple things right where you are about the assignment. So from the chat, lots and lots of questions. So the parents want to be able to see the kids' work. They want to know if there's a way that they can see the assignment without unsubmitting it. My understanding is that the assignment can be viewed but not edited once it's submitted. Is that correct or incorrect?
Yeah, so let's take a look at this assignment. So when I open that, it says your access has expired. So let's see. Let me reload this. All right. So now I can go in here and I can look at this assignment. But if I click on it or do anything, I can copy paste. I cannot type on this assignment. So yes, it can definitely be viewed after it has been submitted. It can't be edited. You notice the top button says request edit access. The teacher now is the owner of this document because it's been submitted. So that is it. They don't need to share it. They just turn it in. They're handing over the whole document ownership to the teacher. All right, anytime they need to get back, they just click on the name of the class. Sometimes that's a little confusing. And we'll go back to classwork. What if it's an assignment that doesn't involve turning in an actual document or something like that? Let's look at that. This one is science reading. So the teacher might assign them to read. So I'm going to click on that and click View Assignment. You can see the assignment says, please read Chapter 2, Section 1 in your science workbook. They're being given a task to complete. There's nothing to turn in. When that is the case, it's going to say mark as done. So they're basically saying, I have completed this task. Also, a great way to communicate with the teacher, other than email, which is now available at the middle school level due to while we're in distance learning, they can add a private comment to just the teacher that only the teacher or any co-teachers will see. This one could say, they could ask, can I read more than this? You know, can I read ahead? And they can send that to the teacher, and the teacher can then respond back. And if they're checking on the assignment, they might see that comment back, or they can have a notification sent to their email. But when they're ready when they've read that and they want to say, hey, I've done this reading, they just mark as done. So that's how to submit when there's nothing to turn in. You're just doing a task. This might be used by a PE teacher. They might have them go through certain exercises, and they'll mark that they've done those things. We'll do one more example. So the next one is, what about an assignment that is something where they have to create something tangible? So not an electronic file or document, but they have to, let's say, build something. Now, I didn't say what I taught, but I taught 4th grade and 6th grade. So at the 6th grade level and 4th grade level, we love to have students build models, right? And so I'm going to show you how a student would turn in something like a 3-dimensional model that is maybe content-based. So I do have something that represents kind of the ancient Egypt chapter from the social studies book. Let's go back to Classwork, and let's do it here. There's one here called All About Me, and I'll just use that for the example here. I'm going to click on View Assignment. Okay, sometimes the teacher will have on the assignment some documents or maybe a Google Slides that they're going to do some work on. So we can look at that, and then we'll show you how to turn in like something like this. So for this one, it says, choose a slide that is unused and tell us about yourself using words or pictures. In this example, the teacher has given the whole class a Google Slide presentation and asked every student to create a new slide, or they might have a whole bunch of slides created, and they're going to pick one to write about themselves. Okay, that'll just use my son as an example. Let's pretend he filled that in. I'm bringing this up, and I'm kind of backtracking a little bit. This one would be an example of something that they don't actually turn in because it's a collaborative assignment where there's multiple students working on it. So it wouldn't be turned in. So, and I mentioned this morning at our webinar. With Google Docs, Google Slides, Google Sheets, Google Drawings, they're all live documents that are saved automatically every few seconds. So it's not like Microsoft Word or the way things were probably when we were all in school or college or whenever it was. These documents are saved every few seconds. They don't have to hit save, and as they update them, that becomes the updates. So we were going to talk about how to turn something like this in, and then we'll kind of get to see, we'll see what some of the questions are. We'll talk about Guardian reports. So let's say they want to turn that in. What they're going to do is create a Google Doc and insert a photo of the item. If it's something 3-dimensional. So they're going to go create a new doc. Remember the other options down here, let me move this out of the way, are docs, slides, sheets, or drawings. They could do this in drawings or docs. I'll show you the version with docs. So they create the doc, and that will open again in a new tab just to kind of go over that again. Okay. Once they have that, let's say they're going to submit a picture. Now, it could be a picture of anything, but in this case, it's going to be of my 3-dimensional model that was done for my social studies class. They're just going to go to Insert. They might put some text on here, but we'll cut to the chase here. Image. Notice the bottom option is camera. So that was Insert, Image, Camera. That's going to use the camera on the Chromebook. If the student's not using a Chromebook, they would just need a webcam. to do this. There's also options to do this with a cell phone, but I'm not going to get into those tonight. So I'm going to click allow. That's going to open the camera so that I can take a picture of this. So remember, I'm using this as an example of as like a 6th grade social studies project. And then they just click insert. That will simply insert the photo onto the page, onto the Google Doc. And then that is ready to turn in. I saw there was a question, and we could go over it again, but so if they're gonna turn it in as a Google Doc, they have 2 options. They can just go straight to the turn in button and it'll go back to Google Classroom, or they can just go back to Google Classroom. Remember, that's a live document. It's updated everywhere. Everywhere you're gonna access it, it's gonna have that picture on it. It's part of the work that I'm gonna be turning in here. And I'm just gonna turn that in. It'll say, here's what we're turning in. We have a Google Slides, we have 2 Google Docs, and that's gonna get turned in right now. So that's reviewing the turn in button. And remember, if there's not something to turn in, it says mark as done. It's in that same location. And I can show you that one more time because I saw that question pop up. It was on science reading. If I can unsubmit an assignment. So students, if they turn something in early, but they thought, well, maybe I want to go back and make some edits, they can unsubmit it. But keep in mind, if they do that after the due date, it will get turned in and marked as being technically late. Sometimes a teacher will extend a deadline, but not change the setting in Google Classroom. So you'll get a guardian report that says it was late. Always remember, sometimes there's a mistake and it's best just to ask the teacher if you have any questions, because that does happen. So there's the mark as done button. That's the difference. If there's something to turn in, it says turn in. So a document, some electronic item. If there's not, if it's a task, it's gonna say mark as done. If they pose a question, it'll say answer, I believe. So there's different things, there's different forms and different ways, but the key is it's always the big button, and the color, it could be purple, it could be green, it could be orange. It just depends on what color that Google decided the Google Classroom was gonna be. It kind of customizes that for the teacher. All right, so I'm gonna click mark as done. All right, so that's the review on that. Let me check in with Dr. Bruick to see if we're on track. We're at the halfway point, and we're gonna get ready to switch gears and talk about some parent and guardian options. Dr. Bruick?
Perfect. So the big questions that I was trying to get to that I'd rather just do here is when would you ever need to use a share button, since turn-in is the one that is used primarily? And I can answer that for you, so you can take a break and have some water. But that is because primarily our students would use it if they were going to maybe do some peer editing, or if they were going to possibly have a group project where lots of people worked on it. But for the most part, it's always turn in, and it's super confusing for the kids at first. And it's a common problem, and the teachers have to work with the kids for a couple weeks until they get it. So if you could help them out, turn it in is the right answer, turn in.
Turn in, yeah, and then that's, I'll repeat kind of what I said earlier, was like, if you, when we talk about the parent email reports, if you start seeing things that are marked as late, please always just understand that might have been, as students are getting adjusted, it's best to reach out to the teacher if you have any questions about that as everybody gets it dialed in. But we're gonna show you a great place that you can go with your student. It's called the to-do list. It's really great. It's on the top left. There's the 3 lines. Some of us call that the hamburger. So I taught elementary, everything is named after a food. There's the hot dog, there's the hamburger, there's the skinny snowman, and there's the waffle. So let's look at the hamburger. Right here, they can see all their classes. They can even access their calendar, which we might take a look at that. But look at this. On their to-do list is everything they have to do for all of their Google classrooms. So if they have 6, 7 teachers who all have a Google Classroom, it's all in one place. So they have, it'll say what is due this week. Okay, they have things to do this week. There's might say next week. There's later is for things that are after the next week. This example only has a few because remember, I'm using an example class. There's likely to be more items on here. You can also look at the missing tab together. I keep saying together because I recommend this is a great thing to go through together. You can see if anything was missing. Make sure you check out what happened there, what needs to be done. Often, like I said, a teacher will extend a due date, but they may not actually mark that in the Google Classroom because let's face it, that's easy to forget. Best to communicate with the teacher if you have any concerns about something like that. And then there's also, they can look at anything that's been done. And so this is where an easy place for your student to see the grade they received. If it's an assignment that has been graded and returned back to the students, they'll see a score there like you see here. It says 95 out of 100 points. So that is the same as we talk about parallels between distance learning and in the classroom on-site learning. This is the day the teacher passes back all the writing assignments. And that grade is at the top, right? You probably all remember that from when we were all in school. The student can also go back into that assignment to see the grade as well. But what a quick, easy place for them to go to see this quick snapshot of everything they have going on for distance learning. You'll have scenarios, and it's going to be quite common during this period of time for a student to have 6, maybe 7 different Google Classrooms that they are attending to. It's all in one place here. That's the to-do list.
Well, I think Kyle, I mean, literally that Dr. Bruick, that turn-on feed, that to-do list was a game changer. I leaned over and took a picture of it and just sent it to my husband because that is going to change things in our house. So thank you for introducing that feature to me as a parent and as a principal. So that's a nice way to get in. There's a few questions in the Q&A regarding if something's late or if something has to be turned in, like redone and turned in. That's always teacher discretion, just like when we're on campus. So that would be something to reach out, that your student can reach out to the teacher to clarify the policy on. Am I missing anything, Dr. Bruick?
No, I think that was really good. There's a lot of questions on how they can get the parent reports.
Okay.
Guardian reports.
What I want to do, I've queued up an example parent report on my actual computer. So I'm going to come off the screen share on this Chromebook. I'm going to move that over to I'm going to share that screen. Okay, I see that popping up on the Chromebook. Okay, this is, let me try to zoom in on this. This is an example of it's called a weekly summary. This is the example that's available on Google, their classroom help page. And to find this, and there is even an option to see, this is the example. So it looks like this, and it says email summary example. You just click on that down arrow, and it shows you what it looks like. And it's a little small on the screen. But you will see up at the top any missing work, and it kind of goes through some different classes. So like U.S. history, there's something. English and American literature, there's something here. Do you have anything due next week for your student? U.S. history assignment, there's a marine biology assignment here. You can see any class activity that was from the week before. So this is in categories by class where the teachers are using this feature. U.S. history, you can see some of the assignments that were turned in. that were done. Notice you're not seeing the assignments here. You're just seeing the information about what they were. Okay, so that is the Guardian email summaries is what they're called. For a parent, the only way to access the actual Google Classroom is to log in as the student for parent or guardian. There's no version that you can log into as a parent or guardian.
I have a middle schooler too, not in this district, but in another district. So a lot of people are asking in the Q&A about how to manage to make sure the work is turned in the parent, from the parent side. I would just, this is just a parent tip, is to set aside a few times a week that are easy times where everyone's in a good mood and you're sitting down and kind of reviewing it together. If you get the digests to go over that and to really talk through everything. So I would just set that up and then let them guide you through this process, because there's a lot of agency for them. There's a lot of pride that they can feel in teaching us, the adult, how to navigate this new classroom. That's just my parent tip. Set aside a couple times a week to do this work. And I think it would relieve you a little bit on that.
With your students' Google account, they have a lot of things. They now have the email has been activated for distance learning to ease communication for teachers and students. But they also still have the Google Calendar, Google Drive, Google Docs, Google everything. So it's great. Let's look at the calendar. Now this, I don't know if this is gonna look great, but because my son Owen, he has some different classes here, but you see some things on Friday. If I go to the next week, you'll see some other things. He has a Go Noodle assignment. Remember, he's a first grader. You can imagine if a student had multiple classes in the middle school setting, there's going to be different items on here, and they'll probably, the color represents kind of their Google Classroom color. So they'll see different colors there. Well, this is another great way for students to keep track of what's coming and what they have due, because they're juggling a lot of pieces with distance learning. Okay. All right, Kyle, I want to stop for a second and see what is going on in the questions. What can we talk about?
Perfect. So if you could actually go back, the question is how can we see the graded assignments? Last school year, they never shared how the students were doing or to go over the answers for IE math problems. So if you could just go back to your to-do list there, that would be fantastic. And we can kind of show how that works. So there's the to-do. And if we look up at the top, you've got assigned, missing, and done. And if you click on done, what happens, Mr. Lang? Perfect. So from there, you should be able to see right there. So Mr. Lang has, obviously in this test class, he hasn't necessarily showed all of the grading that's done. But in this particular one, you see what the student was able to do. 95 out of 100. If you click on the purple icon, over to the left side, you'll also be able to go back and see the assignment.
Okay, so here's the assignment. Oh, this one, yeah, let me resubmit really quick just to make sure. I was trying to reset everything for this webinar, and so that one is turned in now. It's been submitted, and it has been graded. Normally, you would see the assignment there. I was trying to reset things and I got rid of that. But where would they see like the answers to math problems? That, I think that's a good question, and maybe Dr. Brook has some insights on that kind of.
That would be something that you'd want to go over with the teacher. Definitely, it depends. A lot of times teachers don't necessarily release the answers, or it doesn't necessarily, I mean, with a math problem, there's so many different parts about it. The teacher should be going over the answers. This person said, I've asked to be invited as a guardian, but some of my son's teachers said that I've been invited already. However, I've not received any invitation. So could you kind of go over that?
Okay, perfect. So just to reiterate for what earlier, so a parent can't actually be added to an actual Google Classroom to where they can be inside of the classroom and see the assignments. For now, what they offer is guardian email reports. The teacher has to turn those on, and that is at their discretion. They get to choose. You will be invited to receive those, and you can just select, I want daily, weekly, or not at all, that comes to you as an email invite. So my advice would be to search your email for something from the teacher's name, because I think it comes from the teacher's name if you search for the teacher's name. There's a chance that because it is more of an obscure email because it's coming from a Google Classroom, it could have gone to your spam, or it may have been filtered out. You might check there to see if it landed there. The one you do want to make sure the teacher has your correct email input, because that's a manual input for the teacher. Remember, those reports that you get emailed to you only tell you basically everything we saw on the to-do list. They tell you anything that was missed for all the classes where the teachers have this turned on, anything coming up, and anything I think that's been completed. And it's a quick summary of everything, and it gives you a nice snapshot. I highly recommend getting those if the teachers offer them and doing a weekly for Friday. You can do the daily option, but it tends to be a lot of information and too often. The Friday afternoon summary of everything gives you a good snapshot of what is going on. I saw a question in the chat I think I'll talk about next because it came up this morning. It says, how do you add, sorry, not in the chat, in the Q&A, how do you add a student Google Calendar to a parent Google Calendar? So it is really nice to be able to add or share calendars with one another, but the only issue we have with having a district Google account is it does not play with outside organizations or outside accounts. So for instance, a student in GUSD cannot email someone outside of GUSD. They cannot receive an email from someone outside of GUSD. That is designed to protect the student. That is with their student Google account through GUSD. So the same way with the calendar, they can't share it. But here's the trick that I figured out and that I did for mine. I have on my phone, my smartphone, I have the Google Calendar app, which I highly recommend. It works great. I've gone into that, and I've also added my son's Google account to my phone. Okay, I'm able to, in middle school or below, you're able to know their login as their parent. In high school, we do have, for security, students start resetting their passwords to make them more secure. But in middle school and down, that's something you're able to do. And I just signed into his account, and I can now view his calendar on my phone because I have that there. I can also, alternatively, I can also sign into his account on my computer and look at the calendar. But unfortunately, you can't have those two together, which would be ideal because one is within GUSD and one is not. The only option would be is if the parent was a GUSD employee. Okay, what other, Dr. Brooke, we have about?
Perfect. I got a couple for you. So regarding the Guardian summaries, my understanding is that once one teacher adds it into the student's account, the email, the parent email is linked to the child's email account in all classes. Am I right or wrong?
You are, yes, you're correct. So you're not going to get, I'm glad you mentioned this because I was going to talk about it and I forgot. If a teacher turns it on and you get the invite and you accept it, any other class where your student is, where the teacher has turned it on, it will automatically give you the information for that class too. So keep in mind, two things have to happen. The teacher has to turn it on and you have to accept, but you only accept one time. And then you're basically saying, I want to receive these for any class where the teacher uses this feature. So that actually saves you from having to hunt down 7 different emails to get the Guardian summaries. The only reason I know this is because I often use my son's account to do trainings for teachers, and I often am getting his Guardian email summary from his actual Google Classroom, along with assignments from my fake Google Classrooms that come on there too. So it's super easy. If teachers turn it on, you'll get all of them. What other big questions are there? We'll go just a few more minutes. Everybody can get back to their evenings. One thing I want to mention with home devices, like a home computer, some of the applications we use, actually a lot of them authenticate with Google. That means they use Google to verify who a student is. If you have a Google account and the parent's Google account is logged into the Chrome browser, that can cause problems. The number one issue we had in the spring was students would click on a link and it would say, uh-oh, you don't have access. That usually means that it's seeing another account logged into the Chrome browser, and it thinks the parent is trying to log into Clever and not the student, the parent or guardian, and not the actual student. So keep in mind, on a home device, log off of all Google accounts and only have the student's Google account logged into. Chromebooks solve a lot of problems. We're still checking them out every day by the hundreds. So, I mean, well, that's probably an exaggeration, but dozens are going out daily for families that need them. If you have an issue with the Chromebook, and yes, it has to be an actual issue, you can come and they can help you with that. What other things?
All right, let's see here. One of them says, why does the Chromebook not accept a virtual backdrop? What is the alternative?
Okay.
The answer is the processor isn't fast enough, the video card, so that doesn't work. There is not really an alternative other than maybe having your child sit with very close so they've got a wall behind them.
That I was going to say the same thing. A blank wall, something non-distracting. There's other options too. Obviously, for this meeting, I'm in my office right now at ETIS. I have a lot of distracting things in the background. Dr. Bruick has a much more generic background. He has looks like a curtain. Something like that is perfect because it's not a distraction to anybody. But it unfortunately, you need a powerful computer to do virtual backgrounds. It just doesn't work on a Chromebook. And
it doesn't really work on the computers that we have for the district. Just so you know, if we do it, if the teacher does it, half of the teachers' computers do and half of the teachers' computers don't. Like the computer that I have doesn't do a virtual background unless I put a green tablecloth up behind I hang it on the curtain rod instead of the curtains. And there's a lot of work today.
Yeah, so there's virtual backgrounds are nice, but if there's any concern about the home environment or whatever, the blank wall works really good. We have a great spot at our house where there's a corner, the table's in a corner, and that corner works perfectly.
How does my child set up a password for her student portal? The Student Connect portal is already set up. So if you would contact your school office, they should be able to provide it. I know for sure for Roosevelt, and I actually also know for Wilson, we're providing that on the students' schedules next week when they come for distribution. I'm not sure about Toll or Rosemont, just because I didn't ask them about that. Actually, Wilson was going to do it, and I heard about it, and I'm stealing it because Narek is really smart. There you go. And as far as the next thing, the next question says, if the student is in middle school, is still having problem logging in through Zoom via Clever and misses the class next week, will they be marked absent or will there be a grace period for a while? And the answer is the student will be marked absent. But what will end up happening is that your school administration will start calling you to figure out how we can support you. So that absence is really just alerting us that you're having some sort of a problem and we need to help you. So not like it's a huge deal, but I would try to reach out to that tech line that Mr. Lang shared at the beginning. So GUSD.net/distance learning, and then click on technology and try to figure it out before all that happens, because it's hard to be behind when you're in middle school. A lot of times that feeling of being included in class is really, really important at the middle school age. And so we need to try to get our kids connected as quick as possible. Can the computers be used to watch a YouTube documentary, the Chromebooks, district Chromebooks?
There is YouTube available for students. The Chromebooks do all they all still fall under kind of the filtering that the district uses, well, which does filter that out and make it safer, but that is something they can do on a Chromebook, yes.
Yeah, so this one is actually says everyone is getting a Chromebook, and when we get them on the day of the book pickup, correct. So if your child goes to Roosevelt, Wilson, or Toll, then you're part of the Verizon Innovative Learning Schools program, and everyone will be given a Verizon Chromebook. You will not be marked absent to go to your materials distribution, materials pickup time. Or if you are marked absent, we'll change it to say activity or something. It's really not a big deal. We're asking you to come to school, so we know you can't be at school and also on Zoom at the same time. And we definitely don't expect you to walk around with a cell phone trying to Zoom with your class while you're picking up your material.
We want to thank everybody for attending. I definitely want to thank Dr. Bruick from Roosevelt Middle School for asking me to do this tonight and for being with me as a panelist. I would like to very graciously thank all of our translators for being here. Thank you so much. And Bonnie Cervantes for helping out with that. Thank you, everybody. And please reach out. It's busy. There's a lot of calls, but we're going to get back to your calls. And we're always here to help. Hopefully it feels that way. And did you want to finish with one last thought?
Yeah, one more thing is that this is something we're going to continue doing. So just because we did Google Classroom now, I know the next thing that we have with our middle school series, all 4 middle school principals are working together to provide this kind of opportunity. So the next thing that we're looking at in a couple weeks is the Parent Connect. So it'll be a nice webinar to show parents how they can use Parent Connect and what it is. But we'll be going through a lot of these different apps and programs that we're using in our distance learning platform a little at a time, because we know it's a lot, but a little at a time to try to get parents to be able to assist their kids, and in some cases know more than them. So that's what we're hoping to be able to do.